Welcome to this ThinkScript tutorial in which I'm going to show you how to build a very simple post-election analysis backtester to try and see if there's any kind of edge using elections volatility as a strategy. Now to get started, I'm going to remove the backtester that I've built and I'm going to talk about the simple strategy we're testing. I want to know if from election day, or rather after election day, so after we have the results, if holding for 30 days is a good idea, if holding for 60 days is a better idea, or if holding for 90 days is a better idea. I want to measure the P&L of this particular strategy, along with how often the probability this strategy tends to succeed. Now, this all stemmed from a Reddit post in which I saw someone talk about the idea of using the TQQQ ETF, so the triple leveraged Qs, and the post-election volatility as a way to try and really grow a small account. I was wondering if there's any merit to this strategy, so that's where testing this came into play. Now, I've used Perplexity here to give me the election dates going back to 2000. I used that to help make my research process a little bit easier. Now, I'm going to take all of these dates and I'm going to input them into ThinkOrSwim to build a very manual rough backtester. I'll click the study settings icon, navigate to strategies, and click create here. And inside, I'm going to paste in all of the data that I just copied. I'm going to create a variable called election1. And inside of this variable, I'll store the first date that we have, which is November 3rd, 2020. This format needs to be in year first, then the month, then the date, just like that. And now I have our first date inputted. Now I'm going to repeat the process for the remaining dates that we see. So I'll say election 2, election 3, election 4, election 5, and election 6. And I'm going to paste in this portion of the code to make this a little bit faster. And let's manually go in and change the dates. So we have after 2020, 2016, and this is November 8th. After that, we have 2012, November 6th. After that, we have 2008, and there we have November 4th. After that, we have 2004, and we have November 2nd. And after that, we have the year 2000, and we have November 7th. I've inputted all of the election dates. I can now remove that. I'm going to add in one input variable at the top, which is checking how many days after the election volatility that we want to actually measure this. So I'll say post-election days, and I'll set a default of 30. Now I need to create a variable which checks if we're on the actual election day. So for that, I'm going to say def election day, and here is where we can tie everything together. I'll say get YYYMMDD. This is the function in ThinkOrSwim that allows you to get the date of any single candle, and we're going to compare that to our election day. So if it's either of these dates, then we know that it's election day, and we can use that as our reference point. So I'm going to copy this, and I'll check if it's equal to election 2, election 3, election 4, election 5, or election 6. So if we're on any one of these 6 election days, then return true for this variable. Now once we have that, let's go ahead and create our add order function. I'll say add order, order type, .buy to open. I'm going to buy at, or rather, we're going to buy when election day was the previous bar. So we know that the current bar the election results are in. So we're checking if the election day was the bar prior, yesterday's bar. If that is the case, use the opening price of this candle to enter. And I'm not going to specify the quantity. We'll use the default. Now we're going to create the closing order. So I'll say order type, sell to close. We're going to check if election day now is post-election days behind us instead of just one day behind us. And I will use the closing price of that candle to exit. Now, once I have this, let's give this a name. I'll call this TI post post-election analysis. The name's already in use, so I'll say TI_election analysis. Click apply. And now we have a very quick, rough backtester that's giving us the 30-day performance. So 30-day performance post the election results, in this case, inside of the SPY. So let's zoom out. I've loaded in the max available data. I'm going to show report, and let's see what this report is telling us. We're studying the 2000 election and all 6 of the elections that we just inputted. We can see the date that the backtester used to enter. Keep in mind that this date is 1 day after the actual entry point. That's just a quirk of ThinkOrSwim. So it should really be 2 days after the election that you see here if you wanted to use that. However, the closing price, you'll notice, is the correct closing price from the bar after. That's the way ThinkOrSwim backtesters work. That's why we coded it the way we did. Now we can notice here that out of the 6 total elections, 2 of them, so the 2000 election and the 2008 election, after the election volatility ended, we didn't really see that spike up in price action. We continued to see more of that bearish activity, and these are both the bear market years, 2008, 2000. We compare this now inside of the Qs, and let's see if we see something similar. Inside of the Qs, the same 2 election cycles, we can see that the overall strategy P&L is still very negligible at best, both in the Qs along with SPY. Even SPY, I think, while you might see a positive number, the fact that it's only with this recent election did we enter that, I think should give you pause into this specific strategy. You repeat this with the Dow here, and inside of the Dow, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 data points, but you were profitable even before the 2020 election, but still marginally. In all of these, I think your actual profits are mediocre. Now the question comes in, do you pay attention to the 2 markets, or the 2 rather time periods in which you had losers, which also coincided with bear markets? That's what I think this data gives you more insight into. So to help answer this question, now I'm going to add in a little bit more time. Maybe the time that you entered was not necessarily ideal, and maybe you wanted to hold this for a little bit longer to ride out that post-election volatility. So let's go from 30 days to 60 days, and let's see if that helps things at all. Inside of the SPY, if we take a look here, the first 2 or the 2 years that we see that bear market trade continue to be losers. And I think you'll find something similar inside of the Qs as well. So you can make this judgment for yourself. You can take a look and see that in most cases, it's the 2020 election that's driving a majority of the P&L for this particular strategy. So is there a strategy really around using the election volatility and using that to ride for a longer period? Maybe, maybe not. You might dig deeper into these particular numbers. There's not a lot of data points. You're only 6. But you might find some other patterns around who or which party won. You might dig a little bit deeper. Instead of just using simple days, you might make this a little bit more complex, looking at some other conditions based on what the market structure was heading into the election. But all in all, this should give you a very clean, nice starting point to at least answer the simple question of what happens 30, 60, and 90 days after an election. Now, we've tested the 30 and 60. Let's test the final one, the 90 days. Now, logic might tell you that you'd expect the more time you wait, this should get better. Here, with at least the Qs, you can see that that P&L strategy dropped, and you didn't really need to dig too deep. This number simply just tells you that, hey, this strategy, the longer you waited for that post-election volatility, didn't really help all that much. You see that inside of the S&P as well. So use this as at least a starting point. For the Redditor out there wondering whether or not buying, at least in this case, the triple leveraged Qs makes sense with the election volatility, I hope that this backtester is at least one useful starting point in helping understand how the Qs trade and determining if that strategy actually has a viable edge. If you try to use this on the Qs, you won't have that many data points, and the trick there is to simply just switch over to either the QQQ ETF, or you could even use something like the NASDAQ futures if you wanted to use the futures asset class instead. I hope you found this video useful in building a very quick, rough backtester. We used AI to help do some of the research for us, translated those dates just like we did the Super Bowl indicator to answer a very quick question of what does post-election volatility look like. For those of you trading election volatility, good luck, and I'll see you in our next update. Take care, everyone.